37 bones make up the skeletal framework of each upper limb. In the arm, we're talking with the humerus in the upper arm, so this is the sole bone that you find there. This articulates with the scapula at the shoulder, and then the radius and the elbow, the radius and the ulna at the elbow. There's major markings that I think you should know. I think you should know the head of the humerus where it ties into the glenoid cavity. I'm not going to require you knowing the greater or the lesser tubercles. It's not really that important to me, or the tuberosities going down. But down at the other end, there are some things I want you to know. These are condyles. You've got two condyles down here where the humerus links up with the bones of the forearm. And so we've got the capitulum. The capitulum is the condyle that articulates with the radius, and then the trochlea. This one here actually articulates with the ulna. So I think you need to know those. As you can see, since those are condyles, up above them we have epicondyles. So here is my medial epicondyle, and then this would be my lateral epicondyle over here. And then if we turn the bone around, we have where the ulna hooks in here to form your elbow, and this is called the olecranon fossa. So those are the things I want you to know. The head, the capitulum, the trochlea, the condyles, both lateral and medial, and then the olecranon fossa. As we move down to the forearm, we pick up the radius and the ulna. They also, along with articulating with the humerus, they also articulate with each other proximally and distally at a small radial ulnar joints. And they have some interosseous membranes connecting these two bones about their whole length. Now, as far as what I need you to know, we'll stay here. On the ulna, so this is the one that's on the pinky side, little finger side, that's the ulna. The things I would like you to know, I'd like you to know the olecranon fossa, the olecranon process up here. That's what hooks into that fossa. And then the only other thing I need you to know besides the ulna itself is down here at the bottom, I need you to know the styloid process, because as the ulna comes down, you got a little bump there on your, just before your wrist, and that's the styloid of your ulna. Well, you have a styloid of the radius on the other side. So those are two things I'd like you to know. So when it comes to the other bone here, the radius is on the thumb side. So we got the radius here. Again, the styloid process, I think that's important. But the only other thing that you need to know is the head at the top. And if you look at the way this is built, you can see that the radius will radiate around the ulna. And it's what twists around the ulna to allow us to supinate and pronate. So those are really the only things that I want you to know on the radius and the ulna. As we move down to the hand, I'm not going to hold you to all the bones, the carpal bones down here, but if you did, there's a nice acronym for you to remember. The acronym is Sally left the party to take Cindy home. So if you start right here with the scaphoid, that's Sally. As we move across, left is lunate, the triquetral, party, pisiform, and then we start back over here on the thumb side again. To trapezium, take, trapezoid, Cindy, capitate, home is hamate. So Sally left the party to take Cindy home. Remember that the radius is on the thumb side here. Okay, and then from the carpals, I do need you to know your metacarpals. Now we start counting the metacarpals with number 1 being the thumb. I think that's important that you know that. So in case you damage something in your hand, we can tell exactly what it was where the injury's at. As we move past the metacarpals, we come into the phalanges. There are 14 little bones. Now, they're long bones, though. Even this tiny little thing here, that's a long bone because it has an epiphysis and a diaphysis, so it's built correctly. But you have 14 phalanges. And again, we number them 1 to 5 going across, but yet we also name them proximal, middle, and distal. Distal meaning distance or far away. Proximal is the close to the attachment point here, middle's in the middle. Your thumb only has a proximal and a distal phalange. It has no middle phalanx, and you can hear the term phalanx on occasion. This is figure 7.26 that we're looking at. Okay, so that takes care of the arm. Moving into the pelvic girdle, the hips, when it comes to your hip bones, your os coxae or your coxal, you actually have multiple bones that come together to form one of your pelvis bones, okay? Um, Now, the pelvis itself attaches the lower limbs with the axial skeleton with strong ligaments of the body, because this has to transmit the weight of the upper body to the lower body and really support all your visceral organs and you know, your whole body here. So this is kind of important. So now, the three bones that I need you to know here, you've got the ilium up top, and on the ilium, you've got the iliac crest. And so when you feel your hips, that's what you're feeling is actually your iliac crest. Where your iliac crest stops, you have the anterior superior iliac spine, the ASIS. And then you also have if you go on down, you have another spine, the anterior inferior iliac spine, the AIIS. You don't have to know these for anatomy, but sports medicine students do need to learn those. But this is the ilium. Really, the only other thing I need you to know on the ilium is the greater sciatic notch, because the sciatic nerve runs through there. So you do need to know the greater sciatic notch. Next bone is the ischium, back here in the back. This is your tailbone. As I had a yoga instructor once call it, that's your butt bone. So the ilium, the ischium, the only things I need you to know there is that you've got the ischial tuberosity back at the back here. And that's where I'm looking for, oh, there it is. Okay, it's labeled there. It's where muscles attach. It's a big roughened surface. And then I also want you to notice that all three bones come together here to make up the acetabulum. The acetabulum is where your femur, the head of your femur, locks into your hips. So if we go back a couple, I don't really have good pictures of that, do I? It's too bad. Okay, but anyway, here's the acetabulum, and that's where your femur comes up and locks in to make that joint. Now, two of your bones, your ischium and then your pubis bone, the front bone up here, they make up this hole right here. This hole is called the obturator foramen. That's something I need you to know as well. So as we move to the pubic bone, that's the front bone. As your bones come together, you end up with the pubic symphysis where they actually meet. So on the pubic bone, I need you to know that it's the pubic bone. I need you to know the pubic symphysis. And then again, the obturator foramen and the acetabulum are important. So not a lot to these. So on the ilium, really the iliac crest, the ischium, the ischial tuberosity, the pubis with the pubic symphysis, the acetabulum, and the obturator foramen. So that's really it as far as your pelvis bones go. Now, in the textbook, there's all sorts of comparison in the male and female pelvis. We're not going to cover those right now. We'll get those maybe down the road. So next one up is the thigh, and then we'll get the leg and the foot, and that'll end this chapter. But the whole purpose here of your lower leg is to carry your body erect and upright. And so you got to think about the exceptional forces when you jump or run. You really hit a lot. So what the bone you're looking at right now is the femur. This is the big strong one in your upper leg up here. Probably the strongest bone in your body. I think it really is. It articulates with the hip and distally with the tibia and the fibula. There's all sorts of things on here you could learn, and you'll need to for college classes. For my class, you need to know the head and the neck, and those are pretty straightforward. I don't need you to know the greater and the lesser trochanters right now, but there they are. I do need you to know that we have medial and lateral condyles. Remember in the humerus, we actually named those things, the capitulum and the trochlea? Well, here we don't. Here we simply name them lateral and medial condyles. So I want you to know those. I want you to know the epicondyles up above, because this is where we're going to get some attachment of ligaments. But I do also think you need to know the patellar surface, where the patella or the kneecap rubs on the front or the anterior of the femur. So that's really it. Head and neck, the two condyles, the epicondyles, and then the patellar surface. Pretty straightforward. Okay, next up, we have the lower leg. So we're looking at the tibia and the fibula. Tibia is medial, so it's toward the middle. Fibula is lateral, it's on the outside. Once again, they are connected to each other with an interosseous membrane, and they articulate with the with the femur proximally and with the ankle bones distally. They also articulate with each other via the immovable tibiofibular joints. So there's not a lot of movement here, okay? The tibia is really the weight bearing of the two. As far as features on here, there are two features that I really think you need to know. I think you need to know the tibial tuberosity. This is where a big ligament comes down off of your patella and attaches here, attaches your thigh muscles to your lower leg and your knee. So I think you need to know the tibial tuberosity. And I also think you need to know the medial malleolus, because this is the inside of your ankle. And when you feel your ankle, you're really feeling the medial malleolus, okay? And that is really it on the tibia. As far as the fibula goes, this is a stick-like bone that runs all the way down. Two parts of the fibula that I'd like you to know. I'd like you to know the head at the top and the lateral malleolus on the outside, because if you feel your ankle on the outside, that's really the lateral malleolus that you're noticing. Okay, here's your foot. We're going to start with the ankle bones. Once again, I'm not requiring you to know the ankle bones. I'd like you to know this term here, tarsals. Carpal's in the wrist. Remember carpal tunnel syndrome? Here are the tarsals. The tarsal bones are made up of the calcaneus back in the back. That's your heel bone. And then the talus, this is the one that actually hooks into your tibia. Just inside the calcaneus as we move forward, so anterior, you run into the cuboid. From the talus, we run into the navicular, and then we have three cuneiforms, a medial, an intermediate, and a lateral. So cuneiform, cuneiform, cuneiform. And that's all the bones of the ankle. But again, you don't have to know those. You need to know tarsals. Once again, we have metatarsals. We start with number 1 on the big toe side. So that's 1 through 5. Something that they're not labeled here, but this little part that sticks out, that's called the base of the 5th. That's the base of the 5th metatarsal. Just like before, we have phalanges. My phalanges start with the big toe being 1 all the way up to number 5. Don't forget your big toe is only going to have 2 phalanges, so a proximal and the distal. And then after that, you have a proximal and middle and a distal phalange. So once again, 14 bones of the toes, and that takes care of the phalanges. Now, there's more in this text, in this chapter, but I don't cover this. It covers the arches of the foot. It also goes into the developmental aspect of the skulls, not the skulls. It goes into the developmental aspect of the skeleton, and we're not going to cover any of that, but it is in the reading. So if you get a chance, take time to do some reading. It is interesting. I think you'll learn something. So that ends chapter 7 and this video.